Welcome to the road least traveled. My name is Suli and I'm your host. In this podcast, I share with you what I've learned in my journey of spiritual awakening, and I hope that it helps you in yours. So stay with me. Let's figure this thing out together. How many of you have actually made New Year's resolutions? And how many of you have actually given up? Because, most of the time they last like 2 months at best. Whether it's to quit an addiction, eat more healthily, or exercise more, most of us just can't seem to stick to them. But for those of you who are still hopeful at making New Year's resolutions, I have something for you that I think might last. Before that, let me tell you a true story. I was overweight. I mean, there are rides in Disneyland that I wouldn't have been able to get on. For years, I had a strict diet and a really regimented and boring gym routine, which I hated. And even after years, I didn't lose an ounce. So one day I told myself, girl, you ain't never going to be thin. I think maybe you should develop your personality instead. At least it's possible for that to be beautiful. So I ditched the diet and the gym routine, and you'll never guess what. Over the next 3 years, I lost 20 kg without even realizing it. I didn't notice it because it was like a gradual, healthy kind of weight loss. You see, my point is that everything stems from within. You're probably really bored of me saying the same thing over and over, but it's true. Everything stems from within. When I started working on my spiritual growth, when I started changing my inner world and healing parts of it that were long neglected, when I looked within with the intention of rising to a higher spiritual level, my appearance started changing. I'm not there yet, okay? But I did notice that my appearance started changing. So, this is why I want to share with you how to make resolutions that are the foundation of all other resolutions. Don't look at the details, look at the foundation. It's like when you want to plant something, it doesn't matter what you plant, you prepare the soil, you make sure that the soil is healthy, and then whatever seed you plant is going to grow healthily, whether it's a flowering plant or a fruiting plant. And that's why building the foundation for our resolutions instead of the resolutions themselves is the game changer. Here's how you start. You start with emotional fasting. What's the point of making New Year resolutions when we haven't flushed out the underlying issues? So here's something I hope will help you cleanse your system first. First thing you do is to minimize the time you spend on watching and reading the news. It's there to keep you deluded. It's there to keep you distracted. Yeah. By all means, get an overview of what's going on, but don't indulge. To know what's going on in the world and to have an objective view of it, we can be more effective in deciding what we can do or what we're willing to do. But to indulge is a very different story. To indulge will make us unnecessarily sad, angry, frustrated, and distressed. This is what the media and governments want. They want to keep us like angry, sad zombies. Let me tell you something about compassion, okay, which I learned. I used to feel so sad and so angry about certain things, and I thought that was being compassionate. But no, I found that compassion is empathy and sadness with a limit. Yes, with a limit. When we go over that limit, we cease to be helpful to anyone. Not only that, but it's harmful to ourselves. There are people who simply don't care about others, only themselves. And then there are people who care too much about others. Compassion is a balance between the two. Compassion is pragmatic. So it's time to examine why we are overly emotional about something, and we'll see a much more balanced picture about ourselves. And through calmness and objectivity, we hear the wisdom inside of us. And our understanding of how the world works, how life works, just increases because deep down, our soul knows everything. We just have to delete all the noise outside. Now, the second step of your spiritual fasting is stop engaging in arguments, either physically, face to face, or on social media. Instead, Observe. Observe without judging. Observe how they argue with each other and how it's endless and how nobody actually knows what the truth is, to be honest. Now, the reason it's helpful to observe others without judging is because it's so very hard to look into ourselves. I'm not saying to judge others. I'm saying observe them and then relate their behavior to our own. Very often you'll see that both sides are arguing from their ego, except they may not be aware of it. The ego is the biggest stumbling block to awakening. Now, I don't believe the ego is a bad thing and that you should kill it, but it can be a hindrance to spiritual growth. I have an episode titled The One Thing That Prevents Spiritual Awakening, and that explains how we can train the ego to work for us and not against us. On YouTube, the link is up here at the top. Now, after eliminating the external noises, you can now absorb more positive and healthy emotional nutrients in the coming year. There are just 2 things you need to do, but do them diligently. Number 1 is to treat yourself like you treat a good friend. You know they're not better than you, right? You know that they're flawed human beings too, yeah? And yet you're kind and compassionate to them. So why don't you do that for yourself? Why hold yourself to a higher standard? So to start with, imagine you're the person who's your good friend. How would you talk to them? How would you advise them, laugh with them, or take care of them when they need your support? Do that for yourself. Number 2, have forward-moving internal dialogues with yourself. By that, I mean acknowledge a mistake you've made and move on quickly to a solution. I mean, don't gloss over the mistake. Don't deny the mistake. Acknowledge it and then move on to the solution. Every time you make a mistake, even little things like burning your toast, instead of saying, why am I so stupid? I do this all the time. What a waste of food. So many people are starving. Instead of all that, say to yourself, it's okay. Just scrape the burnt bits off with a knife. Now, this has 3 benefits. You're teaching yourself to be more forgiving. You're replacing the voices of other people who belittle you, ridicule you, or scold you. And thirdly, scraping the black bits off burnt toast is a simple solution to a small, tiny mistake that could easily have spiraled into something bigger in your mind. So many mistakes have simple solutions if we just stopped focusing on the mistake itself and instead on the solution. Acknowledge it and move on. Do not let those voices condemning you, belittling you, and mocking you ring in your ears all day long. Just move on and focus on the solution. So that's it. Just do these 4 things. If you do it diligently, I promise you, I guarantee you, your mind will be so clean and spacious, your soul can finally breathe and say, oh, thank you. I've been waiting years for this. And you know what? Because it's so clean and spacious, all the other resolutions will just fall into place effortlessly. Well, over time, of course. Just don't be caught up in the resolutions themselves. Focus on the foundation, which is a clean, empty space. That's where healthy habits grow. Remember, big changes happen effortlessly when we make the small changes. All the best to you. I wish you a happy, fulfilling, and spiritually rewarding 2024. Thank you for listening. If you found this of value, please follow and share it.